Welcome to today's video. We're going to be doing a brow stain application. These are also known as hybrid brows. You can also do these applications with a brow dye product. The difference between a normal tint product and a brow dye or stain product is just that the ingredients and how it's formulated, it provides a better, longer lasting stain on the skin and a longer stain on the hairs. So first we're going to start off and we're going to cleanse the brows. So we do this with an oil-free cleanser. Now I always like to go in with a little spoolie and just in little circular motions, almost just cleanse through the brows. This can help to lift off any excess dead skin, dirt, oils, anything of that sort. So then you can get a better application of the color and it will stain better on the skin as well. And if the skin is too dry, it will just look uneven or patchy. And how does that feel? Does that feel okay? Yeah. Always check in with the client as well. Sometimes the spoolies, they can be a little bit rough or abrasive on the skin. So you just do it ever so gently because you don't want to cut or scratch into the skin. You do need to make sure that they are cleansed thoroughly, especially if the client has makeup on. Definitely do a double cleanse to make sure that you removed all of the product. So now I'm going to remove the cleanser off the brows just using damp cotton rounds, and always just move in one flowing direction. You don't want to be too harsh or like cause friction or more inflammation in the area. So one long sweeping movement is perfect. And then you can always see from the back of the cotton round, particularly if the client does have makeup on, if there's any residue remaining. And when there isn't on the cotton round, that's when you know that the brows are clean. And then before any application, I always like to go with a dry cotton tip or bud and just dry off the area. You don't want to leave the area wet or a little bit damp when you're putting the application of the color on, because it might have the ability to distort the color, that's all. So now just from having that little look through with my client's brows, we know that she does have quite a lot of hair in the fronts and it's a bit more sparse towards the tails. Now we did have a consult prior to this on what Amy likes. She wants to go with a bit more of natural but still defined. So generally what I would do is focus on more of the color where there is less hairs. So obviously you can still see that there's a difference, but they'll be a little bit more subtle towards the fronts where there are more hairs there. Now generally what I do with my clients when I'm doing a brow service is they'll have a color application, and that will include a wax, which you'll shape and style them. I have tweezed them just ever so slightly, just to obviously get a bit more of a defined shape. But we're not going to be showcasing the waxing application today, just the color application. Now, because Amy does have darker hair and there's still some blonde little hairs through the tails, I am going to do a bit of a concoction with the colors. So I'm going to do some of the darkest shade mix in with a medium shade and then a touch of a light shade. So this is a great way with using different products you can customize the colors, particularly stain products as well and dye products. They just mix a lot better than regular tint. So we'll shake those ones up, get that mixed up. Now this stain product is quite more of a liquid formula. So if you want to use the word runny, it's a bit thinner of an application. Some dye products that you can get, they are a bit more or like a gel consistency, but I'm sure we'll do lots of videos in the future to show you guys that. And then you want to mix in with your oxidizer too. Now another thing I suggest to have too is everything you need for the service out on your trolley. This will just prevent, the space from getting messy, and you'll feel a lot more prepared and organized and not rushed as such. Now this you want to mix up so it's a really thin, smooth and even consistency. So it's almost like a whipping motion when you're mixing it up. But always make sure you read the manufacturer instructions for every single product or brand that you're using, because it will always be different. Some people like to mix it up with a brush or another little applicator, but I prefer to use a little micro tip applicator. I don't like mixing it up with my brush because I feel like it just ruins your brushes, because you really need to work the product to whip it in for it to develop and oxidize correctly. So we're going to start our application on this brow here. Now I like to use an angle brush So you can probably see these a lot with makeup applications too. Just find it gets better coverage of the brow. Now you can always dip in just a small amount, and mainly on the side that you're going to be using. So if you're applying it on the other brow, I would flip it and put the product on the underside. Now, because we did mention that there's more hairs through the fronts and not the ends, I'm going to start my application more towards where the areas are a bit more sparse and then build it up. So always remember to, because we don't want this part of the brow to be too dark, I just almost taper off the color so it will blend in a lot better. And you would have noticed my motions where I'm stamping the color in. This just gives the effect, it's almost called like a stamping effect, and it will help the color to stain the skin a lot better. Now I like to follow the natural brow shape, so all I'm doing is adding that color to the hair that's already there. I'm not going out of that shape. You definitely do or perform mapping before you begin doing this, but we're going to be showcasing mapping in some different videos that we're going to be doing soon. So make sure that you keep your eyes peeled for those. So I'm just applying a little bit more of that color just in those fronts there, and that will just help to give the illusion of a fuller brow. Now, if you ever put too much product on, or you're like, actually, I don't want that to stain very much in that one spot, what I recommend to do is you can either use a little bit of water on a damp cotton tip or budge, whatever you want to call these ones, and just wipe gently in the area, and try to do that as soon as you've applied it, because if you've left it on even maybe for 10-20 seconds, it can have the ability to stain the skin already. So always just apply that and have these ready to go so that you can fix any mistakes as you're doing the application. And always check over, move your client's head, move yourself to different angles so that you can see the brow from different areas. So I can already see now that I put more of the product on that I will probably tidy up a few more of the hairs underneath. Another thing you can also have available or ready at your trolley is some tint remover, or if you're using more of a stain or a dye product, you would have a dye remover. Now, the only reason why you wouldn't necessarily do that all the time is sometimes they can be a bit quite like harsh on the skin. They contain citric acid, and if you use it too much or rub the area, you may irritate the skin. So just be really cautious with that and only use it really gently. Now, another question that we get a lot is how long would you leave it on for? It's going to be different for every client, dependent on how dark they like their color or want their color. The color can always start off a little bit intense to begin with, but it does fade over the next few days. So dependent on how dark your client wants to go, you can always generally see when it's ready to be removed. The product will become completely dry on the brow, but you can do things as you go and wipe away to see if it's developed enough for you. But I actually think I want to put a little bit more just in the fronts here and almost blend that through. So I like just lightly brush up. And there's that one section just in here, like a little hole. So what I'm going to do is just gently pat, and then I'm actually going to wipe a lot of that excess out. And you can always go back and fix any up if you need to, or add more product. You just don't want to add too much and it goes too dark, because then it's harder for the product to be removed rather than apply more. Another thing as well that you have to factor in is you do have to move quite quickly when you're starting off with these applications. So I can see now that the product in my little mixing dish is starting to dry. So I'm going to start applying on the other side. And once I have finished that application, I'll start to remove the product on this side and see if the color is deep enough. So you don't need a lot on the brush. Always wipe off any excess. And same thing, I'm going to start just in that middle section, because that's when we want to focus more of the color and almost in that stamping motion. And generally when you apply with the motion that the hair, or the direction, sorry, I should say, that the hair grows in, you'll get a better and more even application throughout the brow. So if you were to apply it, say, in just one way across, you might wipe all the product off and then realize that it hasn't set in some areas. Now to remove them, you can just use a damp cotton round. You can also have a color remover as well, which does actually assist to hydrate the hairs that little bit better, and just in that flowing movement. And then this way you can get a better gauge of if you need to apply any more product. And I'm thinking, just from having a look, that I'm going to add just a little bit more in through this top section here. So keep an eye on your product as well. If it looks like it's almost clunching together and going a bit dry looking, just mix up a little bit more. Now applications will vary from client to client. Generally I give 35 minutes. Some of my clients who require a bit more shaping and things like that, it can take up to 45 minutes. So you'll get comfortable and know your clients as well, and that will deter how long it will take you for your appointment, but generally about half an hour. So after you've removed all of the brow product, you'll be able to tell because you'll use a cotton round, and if there's any residue still coming off, you know that there's still excess color to remove. Now, as you're performing the applications, if you did have to apply color a bit more often than just one pass, I would just advise to your client that some of the areas may have not have developed as well than some others. Look, this can happen if there's areas where there's less hair. Now for this application that we did today, my client did have some more sparse areas than others. So that's why we did have to apply the color again in some of those areas just to deepen it up. But obviously we didn't want to go too dark and leave it on for a longer period of time because we didn't want it for it to become too saturated. That's always the best thing to do, is remove it and then apply more if needed. Otherwise you may have to, be using cleansers or oils and things to fade the color. But my client's super happy with the color that we've got here. It matches really well with her hair color and it's not too deep like she requested. So we have filled in those gaps there, still made them as natural as possible and defined that shape that little bit more. Now the shape will always be more defined when you are performing waxing. It just helps to give much cleaner lines, that's all. And then as you are, performing your applications, always make sure that you're discussing with your client things to help with the color and the longevity of their results. So this will include things like their skincare, what products they use on their brows after their brow appointment. Things like brows oils and serums will help to hydrate and nourish the hair. And then having regular appointments. So maintenance is definitely key to help with, healthier looking brows, more fuller looking brows. So generally your client would come every 4 to 6 weeks for their maintenance appointments. This will help to keep their brows looking full and keep their shape nice and defined. Perfect for a client who doesn't want to maintain their brows themselves. Now I generally will go in with an aftercare oil. So this is something that you might want to stock in your salon too, or have available for your clients to purchase, and that way they can keep their brows nice and healthy in between their visits. So make sure you comment, like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to see more videos soon. Thanks guys.